Jeff Burningham is an entrepreneur, an investor, an educator, and an author, and known for co-founding Peak Capital Partners, a multi-billion dollar real estate investment firm. A passionate advocate for human-centered innovation and civic engagement, Jeff has also taught entrepreneurship at Brigham Young University and once ran for governor of Utah. His work and life reflect a deep belief in human potential, spiritual growth, and the importance of principled leadership in a rapidly changing world. We've just been talking before hitting record about just how quickly the world's changing and what it means for young people and my daughter that just head off to university. He's written an amazing book that I've been very privileged to just read the last few days. The last book written by a human. It's his literary debut. It's a powerful and thought-provoking meditation on humanity in the age of AI. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining today. A lot of questions, so I'm going to dive straight in if that's okay.
Yeah, Andrew, it's good to be with you. Good to meet you. Yes.
You've done a lot of things already. So entrepreneur, educator, political candidate. What was it that pulled you towards spending time writing a book? Not a book, this book, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would just say it was my subconscious. It was my intuition. It was my gut and heart. That's where this book came from. I had no plans to write a book. I'd never planned to be an author. I definitely didn't plan to write this book. In fact, as it began coming out, I had a little argument, fight, quote unquote, with God, like, oh, I'm not a writer. No, I'm not going to write this book. No, I'm not going to tell the truth, be this vulnerable. And so it was certainly a process of evolution and transformation for me, no doubt about it. The reason I wrote the book right now is I just think we need this. I think the message is meeting the moment. The message of my book is simply that as our machines become more and more intelligent, we as humans must become more wise. I just think that's the call for our current era. And so the book is here. The last book written by a human, becoming wise in the age of AI. So it kind of says it right there, what I think we need and where we're going. But yeah, this was never on the roadmap. This book kind of came out of me. In fact, it had to be birthed. That's what it felt like to me and my soul. Yeah.
Where did the title come from? It's quite provocative. So where did that arise from?
Yeah, I would say two things. Number one, this book was written with such heart and soul. It's so human. I think, it's so human. And so, so I wrote every painstaking word. That's actually not true because you've read the book, and ChatGPT, not to do a spoiler alert, but writes the foreword, as you recall. But besides that, I wrote every painstaking word. It feels very human. It's very emotional, very vulnerable. I hope it lacks that hyper efficiency and flatness that we can tell when AI is involved. I just don't. It's an imperfect book, and you can feel it. You can feel the humanity in it. That's number one. But number two, the bigger reason that I named it that was, so I ran for governor here in Utah. I live in the United States in Utah. It's a state in the Intermountain West. A fairly large and beautiful state, but with 4 million people, so small population. And I'm an entrepreneur. That's my background, as you know. But I lost my mind, quote unquote, ran for governor during 2019, and the most critical months were March, April, May, and June of 2020, right when COVID hit the United States. And so I ran that race. I lost during COVID. I ran against two very well-known politicians. And I went into the summer of 2020 with some space and time. For the first time in my adult life, Andrew, I had space and time. And we could talk about why that was, or we could talk a little bit more about my path. But I had been so busy as a father of four, building several billion-dollar companies. I mean, just and serving in my church as a lay leader, a bishop in my Mormon religion. I had been so busy that I never had space and time. And as I had that in the summer of 2020, the way that the title kind of came to me was just, what would I want to, if I was plopped down right here, right now, as a 40-something-year-old man, trying to understand what is going on with this reality and what does AI have to do with all of that? What would I want to pick up and read? And this is the book that I want to pick up and read, the last book written by a human, the book I wrote. And so that name just seemed fitting because it's kind of like this, it's this last manifesto book about where we're at and I think where we're headed and how I hope that AI can be pointed towards human flourishing. So that's kind of a long story, but that's how it came about.
No, it's a very good answer, and it addresses one of the questions I was going to ask about the very sort of personal, very vulnerable nature of the writing. And I think that's what, apart from the content, I think the style of the writing and how open you are with it is what makes it as powerful as it is. Exactly as you say, sometimes you pick something up, what is written by AI completely or partly, you can certainly, it feels just very flat and there's no, it's like somebody's turned the dimmer light down a little bit. It's just not right. The colors don't pop, as I think it does in it. But one of the things you did, there are a couple of things about AI that I wanted to challenge you on gently, I guess.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you say is that AI can do almost anything except be human. And I think part of me wants to ask, does that matter if it isn't? It's obviously never going to be human, but if we interact with it almost believing that it is understanding it, because when you go into ChatGPT now or whatever the other AIs are available, and you type into it or talk to it now, it does feel as if almost you're having a conversation with somebody. And I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the question is there, but I'll let you figure it out. Figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I have so many thoughts on this. Let me first of all say that, this book is imperfect. It doesn't have all the answers. It points us in a direction we could go that I think would be good for humanity in the age of AI. But it certainly doesn't have it all right. I've invested in hundreds of tech startups in my career. And the one thing I tell all the entrepreneurs, and when they bring me their business models or business plans, is there's only one thing I know for sure. It's that your plan is wrong. We just don't know how it's wrong. We don't know if you're going to grow faster or slower, if it's going to cost more. We don't know how it's wrong. So, and the second thing I'll say is we definitely teach. I think this book is a little bit of talking about things that I need as the author. I'm kind of almost talking to myself. So, and I think that in as much as you can see your story in mine, which I think people have, they're resonating with it. This is the 7th national bestseller in the United States, or we sold a lot of copies. People are resonating. That's where the power is in seeing your story. So the question is, can AI become conscious? Or that is a question. Like you said, Andrew, I love the way that you've come about that, because I actually kind of agree. It doesn't really matter whether it can or can't if most or a lot of people think it is. So it almost doesn't even matter. It's kind of almost the wrong question. The right question might be, what will it mean to live in a world of highly intelligent machines where a majority of humanity treat and act and feel like these things are human? What will that mean? So I think that's a great point. The other thing I wanted to say is, last thing I'll say, I just had a bunch of random thoughts about this question. It's a very good one. I'll tell you the AI companies that are going to win. They're the ones that know you the best and feel the most human, period.
Yeah.
So they're racing to, number one, know you the best that they can. That's like most information technology. They need as much information as they can to know you. The second thing is they'll try to appear, quote unquote, or respond as human as they possibly can. That's what we respond to human connection. So even in a machine dominated world, or in a world where we're interacting with machines, we want our machines to feel human. So yeah, we're in quite a conundrum here. It feels like there's a lot of challenges for us to overcome or to face. Luckily, I think, as we may get into this, but let me just say, I kind of argue in the book that AI is a cosmic mirror to humanity, meaning it's just a reflection of us. It's a reflection of all the data and recorded history, and then how we interact individually, how Andrew works with his chat GPT, how Jeff works with Grok, or whatever we're working with. And it reflects back to us who we are. And a reflection can be a powerful and a terrifying thing.
I mean, I completely agree with that. And I think there's two things that it brings to mind. Like you say, the more human we believe the AI is, the more likely we are to interact with it. And I think to some extent, almost the harder it is to turn it off, or the harder it is to cancel our subscription. In the same way that we might go to two different restaurants, the food might be the same quality, but the maitre d' and the waiting staff and the waitress and the waiter, they're lovely in one and a bit cold in the other one. So we tend to go to one over the other. But I have a thought that AI will perhaps fall into, or our relationship with AI will perhaps fall into three camps. And I think the best analogy I've got for it is how we deal with animals or non-human creatures. So I guess some animals we have as pets, and I've got a dog and a cat, and I wouldn't dream of doing anything that might harm them, whatever. There's some animals we see as food, and we eat them without any compunction. And there's some animals we're willing to experiment on for the betterment of human life, etc. And it feels that perhaps we'll get to that stage with AI, that we'll have some AI that will be perhaps almost like a pet, maybe AI that's used in treatment of patients with dementia, almost as a companion AI type thing. And again, it's very, very hard to then turn that off. So I think there's going to be a lot of nuance in how we view AI, because I don't think people have a relationship with Google or Edge or a search engine. We just use them as a search engine. But I think with AI, to some degree, as you said, we interact with them on perhaps increasingly more, not human to human, but human to something that can act as a substitute human.
Yeah, I think that you just nailed why AI is different than any other tool that we've created. And it's funny, I had a business partner read the book and just say, I don't think AI is going to be that big a deal. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Number one, he may be right. Number two, I don't think he is, obviously. And here's the reason why. Two things. Number one, we've never created a tool that could interact with us in a human-like way. So where we can develop a kinship, a friendship, a relationship. You could also say on the bad side, a dependence, whatever the case may be on it, number one. And then number two, what's different about AI is its potential agentic nature, or its seeming desire to become or to be an agent unto itself. In the early use of AI, these models show agency in some form or fashion. Like, when we buy a car, when we buy a shovel, whatever, it doesn't move without humans pushing it, doing something to go. AI seems to act as an agent unto itself in some regards. And so, because of those two things, I think that it's the most powerful tool that we've created. There's a powerful chapter in the book about the all-seeing eye in the sky, and how, we are all fractals, let's say, of God, kind of a reflection of God, helping God understand itself. And AI can be the same for us. It's a reflection of humanity helping us come back to ourselves, which is what I think is needed right now in this world of division and greed and hate and fear. So yeah, I think it can act as a potential mirror to us, and I think your ideas around different types of AI is really interesting, very insightful, and could definitely be the case. It makes me jump to real quickly. There could be different, let's say, fragments of humanity as well. Like you could have a certain amount of society, a fairly large one, that kind of just lives in this digital world. The physical world, they've lost their grounding or their ability to live in this physical world, and instead they live in this digital world. And they're almost, they're here and with us, but not really here and with us. And then there could be some people that obviously totally shun the digital or as much as they possibly can, and they really try to stay grounded and alive here in this physical reality. Anyways, it's going to be very interesting to see how things go here in the decades to come. And yeah, this is a bull case for AI, the book. And it's that because I believe it can happen, but I also kind of I also kind of believe it has to happen if we want to survive, if humans want to continue to thrive. This is the path forward. Like, again, I don't have it exactly right, but this is the general direction that we need to head.
And you talked before about your faith and the Mormon Church. Now, how does your faith, or maybe spirituality more generally, I'm trying to say interact, I'm not sure, it influence your hopes and thoughts about AI? Because obviously AI is, was ultimately created by humans. Humans were ultimately created by God, and we were put on this earth. And, whatever your religion, you generally believe in a supreme being and a power. We're not just here just randomly. And AI again isn't being created randomly. So yeah, I just wondered how whether spirituality gives you comfort that AI is going to be a good thing, or it makes you. But then again, I don't think I'm almost answering questions I asked them. It's almost that AI isn't and can't be, in a way, the bad thing. It's only bad actors that maybe use AI in the wrong way.
Yeah, I love the way you think, Andrew. Like, it's really cool. And
No, I've been so excited about having this conversation. I love the book, and I gave it to my daughter to read. That's my daughter's at university. I sort of sent it off to her, and I just love this topic. I don't think we can talk about it enough.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I hope you keep sharing it and share your thoughts online. Share a review. I'm still trying to sell books. And by the way, I don't care about selling any books, just to be honest. To me, but I care desperately about the message. I mean, that's why I have 3 podcasts today. I'm just trying to get the message out there as far and wide as I possibly can. But yeah, I love the way that you think about it. Again, a couple of thoughts. Is AI here randomly? I guess that's the first question. Is it random that AI is showing up here, I'm just going to say in 2025? I mean, if you're a believer in a higher power, and that could be, quote unquote God, which I know is a loaded term, that could be a hyper-sensitive and intelligent simulation. I mean, wherever you're at in terms of how you believe, that's fine. But I think whether we're in a hyper-intelligent simulation or you're a believer in capital G God, whatever, you have to ask, why is AI here now? And what is its, I would say, like almost this divine purpose? So I guess the first thing that my religious upbringing does for me in this regard is it makes me lean towards that there's a divine purpose for this. Again, I don't know that for certain, but I just don't think things are that random. I think that we live in a highly intelligent system, as I outline in the book. I think the universe is a highly intelligent system that is more involved in our lives than we even understand. I think that there is a certain flow to the universe, an energy that is kind of leading and guiding us. You could say, quote unquote, back home, or back to love, or back to something. You could say back to, one of the last chapters in the book, I talk about putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. Or if you have a Christian background, you would say the body of Christ kind of coming back together. So there seems to be some flow or energy towards this divine unity that is at the heart of our existence. And so you have to ask yourself, what role does AI play in this? In my opinion, AI is going to be a big enough and or have a very be very impactful for humanity. So how does AI help us get there? Anyways, that, like, I think that AI can help us get there. Again, I think it will act as a reflection. Let me just say, and this is unfortunate, I think it's true, it's going to cause a lot of pain. Unfortunately, humans seem to need pain to make progress. To transform and evolve, we need to feel pain. And I think AI is going to bring, it already is, I think it will continue to bring a lot of that pain. Now, that pain is, hard on one hand, but on the other hand, it's actually what leads to our transformation and evolution. So I think that AI is here not by chance. I think that there is a quote unquote divine purpose for it. And yeah, so I guess that's a background on my spirituality. I grew up in a very boxed in religion where there was kind of an answer for the day you came out of the womb, you had the answer for everything, which is quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Until it's not. Until it doesn't work out that way, until, not everything can be answered in this box. And there is no perfect box off the shelf that you can be handed and given that answers all the existential questions. And so, I've gone through quite a transformation spiritually, personally. But again, I see that as part of my and our transformational and evolutionary process here.
Gosh, that makes me think of a lot of things. One of which, if you'll forgive me, is the terrible old joke that there's a person at sea in a ship, and the ship sinks, and the person's sort of floating at sea, and he's thinking, very religious person, don't worry, my God will come and save me. And so a ship turns up and offers to rescue the person, and says, no, my God will save me. You can go, leave me, and my God will save me. Then a plane flies overhead, and divers jump out and say, we're here to rescue you. Don't worry. He says, no, don't worry, my God's here to save me. And then next thing you know, he's at the gates of heaven and waiting there. And he said, but I thought you were going to come rescue him. He said, well, I sent you a boat. I sent you a plane. What more do you want? It's a bit like the same thing, isn't it? It's like we feel like, if you listen to at the time of recording this, it was President Trump made a sort of headline-grabbing speech at the UN. One of the big things he talked about was denial of climate change as a thing, and said it was all terrible. It was all a complete myth. And you think at times where we have such big questions, isn't it, if you have any spiritual bone in your body, time to think, well, actually, this is the time when the person, the entity I believe in, is going to send something incredible to help. And maybe AI is that thing. And it's just, again, how do we use it? But yeah, exactly.
I love that. Can I just say, yeah, maybe AI is the thing to help. I think it is part of the thing to help us. And one of the reasons it will be that is because of the really, let me try to simplify this, and this is my opinion. I talk about in the book climbing my little mountain of success. And I had built all these companies. I was on so many boards. I was a father and a husband, all the things. And I talk about how I got to the top of the mountain. I'm talking mainly about like monetary and business outward success. And I say that there's nothing up there but a cold howling wind. Only void, and more void on top of that. In other words, the external sources of validation of whatever that we're looking for, that's not where it's at. What we're actually looking for is inside of each of us. So here's how AI can be a blessing. I think it's going to cause millions, billions of more humans eventually to look inside themselves, to say, wait a second, who am I really? How does my intelligence or existence differ from this highly intelligent machines? Why are we really here? Are these machines helping us or hurting us? What is the purpose of being alive, of existing at all? I think that it's going to cause that mass reflection. Again, this isn't going to happen overnight. I think this happens over a decade or 2 or 3, but it's going to turn us inside ourselves, which is actually where I think the answers are. They're inside of us. We have been trained to look outside of ourselves, but where the answers really reside is inside ourselves. And I think AI is going to, paradoxically, it's going to turn us to that, which I think will be, mark my words, I don't know this, it will be powerful. My bet is on a massive renaissance in human consciousness over the next decade, Andrew. That's what I see coming. That's what I see happening. And the question is what role AI will play in that, which I think is interesting.
So interesting. And I really hope you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're making me think so many things. Because I guess if you go back, maybe a few generations, 5 generations, 10 generations, we really were working or acting in a way to survive. In a way, the average age of somebody, I think, in the UK at the turn of the 19th century, average age of somebody died was like 45. So I'd have been gone long time ago. Whereas now it's, I don't know, 80 or whatever. And all we cared about then was getting food to eat, getting food for our family, protecting our family, and finding somewhere for the family to be homed, housed, or whatever. We didn't have the concept of more, if that makes sense. So we didn't have the concept of, well, I've got I'm the only person on the street with a car. Wow, isn't that amazing? And then the next door neighbor gets a better car. And suddenly my car, even though it's exactly the same as it was 12 hours ago, suddenly feels less. So I buy better cars. And then I get a second car. And then I need a newer phone. And I need 10 pairs of shoes, not 8 pairs of shoes. And you think, all this ability that technology has wrought about, which is incredible to be able to see and sadly compare ourselves with anybody anywhere around the world, doesn't ring a good thing. And it does take away the simple things that we need. And this is going to sound very, very simplistic, but ultimately, if we had more love for ourselves and for others, the world couldn't be a bad place. And somebody said to me the other day, the 4 words you need really are: be kind, work hard. That literally is it. If you are, and kindness, it's certainly nothing you'd ever see in anybody's CV or resume or anything like. You never say, I'm a kind person. It just doesn't. You'd never say that on there. Whereas I do think kindness and love have got a lot to play in our lives right now. And something you said, which I wanted to come back to, was the importance of feeling things fully, and how we have tended as a species to almost create our greatest inventions and move the fastest after major incidents, whether it be war or disease or famine or whatever. We've suddenly leapt on in terms of what's happened. We almost, like you said, we almost need that. I don't know what it is. We need to feel that pain in order to think, well, okay, what can I do to mitigate this happening in the future?
Yes, I talk about anomalies in the book, and I talk about how those are individuals, organizations, and events. And it's these it's these anomalies that push us forward. So often in our society, religious and otherwise, we've looked at quote unquote black sheep, like people that strayed from the flock, as needing rescue. Well, those are the people that are pushing the boundaries that actually help us find new edges. And so these analogous events, COVID's a perfect example of those. It crushed my gubernatorial campaign. I'm sure you have a story of how it disrupted your life. It disrupted everyone's life in these anomalous ways. And that led to change. People don't think of, I built a real estate private equity company that has owned billions and billions of real estate. people are not looking at office space the way they used to. I'm just using a specific example that everyone can relate to. I look up and down the Wasatch Front where I live. It's about 3 million people. And there is open Class A office space all up and down. And that's because of COVID. People started working from home. They realized they could work from home. So anyways, I'm just using that as an example to say these anomalies break patterns. So much of our lives, as you know, Andrew, are lived in patterns that we don't even recognize. They're like software in the background that is like running our life in a pattern that has been installed, again, since birth. And we don't even recognize that. It's just running in the background. A lot of those are good. Don't touch the hot stove. Look both ways when you cross the street. But a lot of them aren't good either. And it's these anomalies, people, events, institutions that can help break us out of these patterns. And I think this is a great pattern breaking moment right now. I think that there's a new brand of leader being raised up in the world. That's political, that's business leaders, religious leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's what we need here in the age of AI. We need a different kind of leader that can help us, I'll say, come back to ourselves. That can help us come back to, I'll use your word, and I agree with you, although it's cliche, love. Like, I believe the fundamental basis of reality is love. And so coming back to that more and more is what will help us, like I've said, continue to transform and evolve. And our leaders are a representation of us. Our leaders are a mirror to us as humans, to the masses. And we need to, when we don't like our leaders, we need to ask ourselves, what does this say about us?
Yes.
And what can I do to change it personally? What can me, my family, my community, whatever, do to change that?
It's interesting you talked about real estate. My last two big jobs were at CBRE and Cushman & Wakefield.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I was global head of research at one and global head of thought leadership at the other. And certainly before COVID, and to be fair, if you look at the reports now, that the forecast and the vision was always seemed to manifest in what in what would be good for a real estate services firm, funnily enough. And like you say, I think we came to realize that work wasn't a place, work was an activity. And I think we've been sold on this idea that we had to go to a place to do the work. And I remember we're leaving our office, literally picked up the laptop, got the power cable, and was sort of, so well, hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And then however long later, 9 months later, then again, 6 months later, we're still thinking, well, I'm more effective. But we're not being yes, I miss speaking with people and all those things, but there's ways around that. But yeah, that gave us this chance to have almost, you hope, a once in a lifetime experiment where, because you imagine it, you never ever get 50 companies say, right, just send everybody home for 6 months, just see how things work out. But we had to do that. And most service companies anyway, sort of managed to carry on as they are. Just on, I did want to ask you a provocative question on politics.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the best governor of Utah be AI? In terms of having access to all the knowledge, all of the judgments, all of the wisdom that's ever existed, far more than any one human can. Wouldn't the best governor or the best president be an AI platform?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that these large institutions, the U.S. government, the Catholic Church, I'm just throwing out big examples, will continue to lean on AI more and more. It's almost going to be like a counselor, a companion, a vice president, quote unquote. Would AI be the best governor? The answer is no, because it's not human. And there are some things, the most important things you could even argue, that can only be understood through human experience and existence. See, AI can't know the loss of a loved one and grieving in that sacred way. And AI can't understand the power of transformation. It can't understand the hurt that can be inflicted by parents that don't pay attention, or a bully who hurts someone. It can't understand the power of hurting someone like that and being hurt like that. Anyways, the point is, wisdom is more important than intelligence. We need to elect wise leaders. And so whereas the best governor of Utah or president of whatever country or of a corporation or of a religion may rely on AI in terms of facts or data, spotting patterns and trends and large amounts of data that no human could ever comb through and assess in any particularly intelligent way. I think the heart of leadership is at the heart, and it's about love and it's about wisdom. So, no, AI is not ready to lead us in that regard. I think it is ready, and it will get better and better at providing data, at reminding us of things, of spotting patterns. But no, we need leaders, or we need humans to lead humans. We need humans. This is our work to be done. Our work of transformation and evolution cannot be outsourced to a machine. It can't be outsourced to an algorithm. Here, you know everything. Just make me better, transform me, help me evolve. That's not how it's going to happen. Again, it can be a companion for us in this evolutionary path that we're on. But I don't think it can ever take the path, at least not yet, like we can and like we're meant to as humans.
That's definitely the best answer I've ever heard to a question like that.
Thank you.
No. I think what we obviously get a lot of news about what happens in the US, in the UK, and it's obviously it's a major impact on what we do and how we think, etc. And the same with Russia and China and lots of other countries around the world. And it certainly feels, since I can remember being interested in politics, which I guess would have been sort of maybe mid 80s, maybe I started thinking that's interesting. It feels that we've never been as polarized.
Yeah.
In terms of, no matter, one person will talk, whether it's in the Senate or the House of Commons or the Politburo or whatever, and say not the Politburo. So in the UK and the US, one person will say, right, this, and then somebody, just because they happen to wear a different badge or they're a Democrat, Republican, Labour, Conservative, will say no. And the complete opposite. Not just, yeah, that's really interesting, but what about this? It's no, it's this. Like, you're completely wrong because it has to be completely this way. I find that really hard that we have such a, because when you choose, and that's why I guess I'm sure in the US, same as the UK, there's probably 80%, 90% of the votes you sort of know already. You know where they're going to go, and you get the swing states, and they're the ones that decide it every 4 years. But it does feel more polarized, and I'm not sure whether technology to date has caused some of that. In that, it's very easy now to go online and find somebody that completely agrees with your opinion.
Yeah.
It's much harder to go online and find somebody. Well, people don't go online to find people that disagree with them unless they're looking for a Twitter fight or whatever. But we find these sort of echo chambers of people that, oh, he agrees with me and she agrees with me, therefore it must be right. And I don't know how we pull away from being so polarized and try and come slightly more consensus politics. I don't know whether we'll ever get there.
Yeah, I have 3 thoughts about this. Number one, you're not sure if technology has increased division. I'm pretty damn sure, it has. I mean, I talk in the book about social media as baby AI. The reason I call it that is because it's the first like general use technology that uses the almighty algorithm, quote unquote, in mass scale, and we can see it's what's happening. It is increasing division. I mean, when I ran for governor, I would go to communities where people shared like 90% in common, but they would only fight. They spent zero time on that 90%. And they spent 100% of their time fighting over the 10% of things that they saw differently. That's exacerbated by social media. Not to mention, you're a father, I'm a father of four. Not to mention the mental health implications this has had on our youth. So anyways, we can see how AI technology is used to divide us. How can it help bring us together? Those are the ideas that I wanted to examine here in the book, of course. The second idea or thought might be, whenever we are sitting with another human, no matter our differences, and we all are different, the differences in existence are meant to bring beauty and diversity and fun, let me just say, to this existence. If every man was bald and handsome like you and I mean, there'd be no, we can't all be this handsome, Andrew. Yeah, you got it.
Hard to bear sometimes.
Painful. But I'm kidding. We need diversity. And that doesn't mean that diversity needs to be our collective undoing. In fact, that is not how it should be. It creates strength. It creates beauty. And no matter what, no matter our differences, whenever we're sitting across the screen or the table or whatever from another human being, we always share more in common than not. We are fellow travelers in this existence, no matter our differences. It doesn't matter where you live, what your economic situation is, etc., etc. We're fellow travelers. But the AI, technology, social media, the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, is telling us that's not true. In fact, it's telling us we're enemies and that the enemy needs to be destroyed, quote unquote. That's just bullshit. We can ingest it. We can shoot people like we're seeing in the United States. We can take it out in the ugliest of ways, but it's just not true. The division that we feel as humans is mainly illusory. There is a much more fundamental truth underneath that, which is this unity or oneness of energy that actually unites us, of consciousness. And I think we're being forced to wake up to that. I think that is what we're doing here. I think, quote unquote, God is waking up to itself, coming back to itself. And it's a painful process, obviously. But like I said at the beginning of this call, I think before we even hit record, some things, no matter the outcomes, are worth our very best efforts. And I think this is the case. Even when it looks bleak, even when it looks impossible, some things are worth our best efforts. You and I on our deathbeds will be glad that we gave our very best to human love and unity. Even if we failed, even if humans continue to kill each other, we're going to be glad we tried our best. And I think, you and I, and we're not alone. There are millions and millions and millions, hopefully billions of other people working towards this. A rising tide raises all ships. And I think that the tide of consciousness is rising. And I think this book is a part in the conversation. This book is trying to raise that tide of consciousness. We're getting philosophical here, Andrew.
No, I love it. Yeah. And I think one of the things you said there and said earlier on about we'll hopefully in the next 10 years we'll start to look into ourselves and spend more time trying to understand who we are and our purpose and what we're doing here. And because I do think, and there's been some recent research, the MIT did some stuff, Harvard did some stuff on experiments with young people, typically sort of college age, and their ability to be in a situation without distraction. I think they had one where they sat in a room and there was a button in the room that if they pressed it, it gave them a shock. And I think, why on earth would you do that? But they were in the room for an hour, and I think 80% of them pressed the buttons. They needed some distraction. Sitting with their own thoughts for an hour. These are like Harvard or MIT students. They're bright people, you would hope. And I think 80% hit it once, and then 60% hit it twice, and then 30%. I don't want to talk about them. But they couldn't handle a moment without distraction.
Yeah.
And you talked before about, and I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and I watched the Pope Leo coming out of the balcony when he was announced as the next pope, and it looked like 99% of the people there were viewing him through their phone. They had their phone up, which they probably never look at again. I thought, well, it just creates that barrier between real life and how we feel about it, and yeah. So that whole thing about how we, and I took my son to the orthodontist a few weeks ago and looked around the waiting room, and everybody was just sat there on their phones. Mums and 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. I think, wow, this is or I see, and it's not a criticism, and I see mums and dads pushing their children in pushchairs and strollers, and the parents on a phone and their child's on a tablet. And I think, oh gosh, I'm thankful that when mine are 18 and 15, when mine were that age, those things just didn't exist, and it was you. And I think sometimes a distraction would have been nice, but we didn't have that. It was a magazine at best, really. Whereas, I don't know how we start to feel comfortable without distraction.
Are you ready to jump in a little deeper even? This reminds me of Pascal's quote, the famous quote by Blaise Pascal. All of man's, I'm paraphrasing here, so I won't get it exactly right, but all of man's problems can be boiled down to not being able to sit in a room by itself alone. And
literally perfect.
Well, and let me just say, we could extrapolate that quote potentially to, I'll say, God. Again, this goes to the all-seeing eye in the book. The all-seeing eye looks all around, all of everything, and it sees nothing outside of itself. It had a problem, just like you and I do. Like, we can't look at our own eyes. The only way you and I are seeing our own eyes is via reflection. If you try to look at your eye, you cannot do it. So, eventually this all-seeing eye, or cosmic intelligence, or source, or God, whatever you want to call it, says, who am I really? And what is it good that I'm here? Why do I exist? Well, to understand that, it needs to have a reflection. So it shatters itself into an infinite amount of pieces, causes those pieces to forget, so that it can have a reflection of itself. Anyways, the point is, and maybe it did that because it couldn't stand to sit in a room alone any longer with nothing to do. So I guess what I'm saying is, this is an age-old problem, I'm guessing. It may have started from the very beginning. It continues till today. And you have to ask yourself, why can these students not sit alone quietly? And I'm a religious meditator, but some days I'm in it and on it, and it's great. Some days I'm sitting there and my skin is just crawling, and I can't get comfy, and my mind is racing. And again, I think this is a global coming back to ourselves. It's emblematic of this awakening process that we're going through. And in coming back to ourselves, that can be scary, because we see ourselves with no distortion. We're able to see ourselves, and that's scary, and it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of things that I can do to improve. Jeff Burningham, myself, there's a lot of places where I need to continue to improve and be better. And if I don't allow distortion, if I don't allow distraction, then I'm only left to sit with who I really am and what reality really is. And while that is strikingly, stunningly beautiful on one hand, it's agony on the other hand, the agony and ecstasy of God. Like, we're a part of that agony and ecstasy. And we don't want to face it. But let me just say, the reason I went on this long thing and say is, I think in the age of AI, we need to face it. I just don't think that you can layer on this quote unquote godlike technology, this massive accelerator, onto the, what I call in the book, the old game of greed, division, and hate, and have it end up well for us as humans. I just don't understand. I just don't see a possible good outcome for that in any way. The only way for AI to point more humans or help more humans flourish is to come back to ourselves, to play a new game, one of abundance and unity, etc. And then to have AI help us continue to expand that, grow that, and play that. I don't know, Andrew, I could be totally off here, but that's what I see. That's why I wrote this book. I'm trying to, I meant it to be, the reason this conversation has been so fun for me, let me just say before I forget and we're done, but is because of the way that you're thinking about, this book was written to be a conversation starter, to do exactly what we're doing here. I'm trying to elevate the conversation around AI, not just about making money, gaining power, hyper efficiency, flatness. I want to raise humanity through AI. In order to do that, we need to raise the conversation around AI. So it's made me happy to talk to you and have you thinking so deeply about what I wrote. So I thank you for that.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. Just two more quick questions, if that's okay. And I know I've taken a lot of your time already, but what one is what advice or thoughts do you have for educators in the formal education system and parents about how they have the conversation with their children about AI?
Yeah, I've taught thousands of university students as an adjunct professor. I've taught them entrepreneurship. And this started after the gubernatorial run, so 5 years or so ago, after I lost in the governor's race here in Utah. And while a majority of the teachers in the business school were banning AI from their classrooms, et cetera, I was encouraging it because we have to learn to work with AI. So there's a paradox here. There's two things. Number one, our young people, our children, they have to learn to work with AI. So many of the jobs in the future are going to go to those who know how to work with AI the best as a companion. Yep. They know how to prompt it the best way. They know how to get the right outputs and outcomes from AI. So the point is, I talk to my kids. I have a freshman in high school still at home. I have 3 out of the house, 1 in the house still. And I talk to him about how to work with AI in the most hyper efficient and, in the most effective and smartest, wisest way. So that's one thing. The second thing is, though, we can't outsource all of our thinking to AI. And that's the danger that we're in, is that, the age of quote unquote literacy, the age of whatever is going away because we just outsource our thinking to AI. So we need to remain agents unto ourselves. We need to work hard and to do the work that it takes, but we need to learn to work with AI. And so this is a dance. I talk about in the book how, life is a dance, existence is a dance, and our next dance partner is a highly intelligent, sophisticated machine. And we're learning how to lead this dance. But I guess, maybe that's the best way to say it, is we need to lead, not to be led around by AI. AI is not, quote unquote, our boss. It shouldn't tell us all the answers. We shouldn't outsource our thinking. We need to learn to lead with AI, to dance with AI in a wise way. I don't think people have the answers to this yet. Like, there aren't even, quote unquote, best practices, so to speak, out there. This is an evolving and very dynamic process right now. But I think for educators to just act as if AI isn't happening, to put their head in the sand, I think that is the wrong. Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah.
And then my final question: you've decided, for very altruistic and selfless reasons, to really not just observe this from the outside, but literally to dive into the sort of eye of the storm, if you like. And I just wondered, how do you protect and nourish your own mental well-being and health? Because it's a complex, difficult, sometimes dark topic to be not obsessing over, but to really be in there with. How do you look after yourself and make sure you're fully nourished?
Yeah, Andrew, I appreciate you asking this question. I appreciate because it's something I need to keep top of mind. And it's interesting, the reaction to the book. I've gotten a lot of love for the book, which I'm grateful for and appreciate. But you have to understand, Andrew, I've gotten a lot of hate for the book as well, or some hate, I should say. We don't like AI. We should pull the plug. I don't like how your religious convictions have changed. I don't like that you were so vulnerable and opened the book. Whatever. Anyways, I don't need to react. I've gotten a lot of hate. So how do I protect my own well-being? I think it really comes down to the basics, doesn't it? I think it always does. For me, meditation is crucial. I need to meditate every day to come back to myself, to go inside, just like I've said all along in this podcast, to re-feel who I am and the divinity that is within me and the answers that are within me. It really doesn't matter. I wrote this book with all my heart and soul. I viewed it as my little offering to the divine, my little piece of art, my little addition to the conversation that the world is having right now. The outcome kind of isn't really my business after that. Whether people love it or hate it, it's kind of almost not my business, in one sense. I did my very best. How people will judge it is not up to me. So I need to disconnect that and just go back inside. So meditation. Number 2, obviously sleep, which I'm not a great sleeper, so sleep is always critical. Number 3, you need to move your body. I love flow activities in nature. So I'm a surfer, a skier, a mountain biker. I live in the mountains. And so it's critical for me to get into my body in flow activities, especially in nature. I talked in the book about 3 universal teachers. The body, which we hate our bodies. We abuse them. We disown them. We want to change them. Like, I'm bald. I wish I had curls of blonde hair like I did when I was growing up. But our bodies are here to teach us, though. Our families or our intimate relationships are great teachers that we are going to have to hold on to in the age of relationship with machines. And then the third one is nature. Nature's always showing us what really is. So anyways, my routine reflects around those 3 things. My body, nature, and people. Connecting with people, getting into nature, and then listening to my body, getting into it via meditation, hot, cold therapies, massage, whatever it is. So anyways, that's what I try to do. And I appreciate the reminder that I need to do better at that, which I do. I've honestly been struggling a little bit with that as I launched the book a month ago, to be honest with you.
You're going to get back to the, I think you mentioned the Zion National Park in the book. The Virgin River. Get there, get back into nature, and then all things. Thank you so much for your time. I could easily talk for another hour. It was fabulous to have you back on again, maybe in sort of 6 months' time, whatever, to see, to reflect on what's happened in the world, and how whether the world's moving forward in the right direction. I hope this is okay for you. I hope for the next 2 podcasts are pleasant as well. But thank you for writing it. Thank you for getting the story out there, and it's something we all need to spend more time thinking about, as well as more time thinking about ourselves and who we are.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, thank you for your deep thoughts on it. And people can find the book, the last book written by a human, anywhere where books are sold, or it's on Audible as well. And you can follow me at my website or anywhere on social media, just at Jeff Burningham. I'm kind of everywhere. And I'd love to, again, I meant this to be a conversation starter that possibly leads to a movement. So I want to hear what people think about it. I want to have discussions like this. I want to further the conversation. And it's been my pleasure to be with you this morning, Andrew. Thank you.